Yes, we're gonna start with the last day, and I thought I'm gonna wear a suit that matches the car, so maybe I can take the car home. I don't know. What's your contract with them?
Contractually, you have to check with Nissan.
Okay, that's good. How are you feeling, Chris?
I'm really excited. Last day, we've had 2 jam-packed days until now. We've got a jam-packed day ahead. We've got some great things to discuss today. So yeah, excited to have everyone here with us.
Yeah, and you know, we had the first theme on the first day was like Sweden, then we sort of focused out to Europe. Now it's like the global aspects that we're going to talk about. So what do you look forward for today?
Yeah, today's the global day. We've got some great discussions. We're going to hear from Vanessa from Volvo in just a second, but then we've got discussions on batteries, discussions on transition of OEMs to climate neutrality, and a session I'm really excited at, not just because I'm moderating, but a session about the global industrial and trade policies, where we even have a representative from the US who wasn't allowed to travel here, dialing in to give his view about what's happening there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be great.
Exciting day. And I think we should mention also at 1:30, there's going to be awards. Like there's city awards that people don't know yet, but some cities have won a big awards, and we're also going to award some of the papers, the scientific papers. So 1:30 is really like a big moment to be here. Can I thank you for this, Chris? You've been a great replacement of Sandar. Thank you so much.
Take us forward. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to announce to you that we've got a great speaker now. Her name is Vanessa BUTANI. She's head of global sustainability at Volvo Cars, and I would love to hear her vision on her sustainability. The floor is yours, Vanessa.
Good morning, everybody. What great music to get us pumped for the day ahead. I'm happy to see all of you here today. It's going to be wonderful. Today, I'm going to talk about electrification and how driving a fully electric car is not just a great experience for our customers, it's better for the planet. I will highlight real-life cases from Volvo Cars on how technology serves as a catalyst for sustainability. And then, how the benefits of electrification ripple across our value chain and society at large. But we will also talk about the bumpy road, about policies being rolled back and the risks of this unprecedented external turbulence, and how we fix it, how we stay on the road to electrification. So let's start by taking a quick look at where we are today. We already have 6 electric cars on the market and 4 more coming. We see strong demand for our EX30, which has the lowest carbon footprint of any fully electric Volvo to date. Our flagship model, the EX90, features 15% recycled content, a battery passport, and a driver understanding safety system that was named one of Time magazine's best innovations of 2024. And our recently launched ES90 represents Volvo Cars' work towards enhancing our sustainability credentials even further. It's made with approximately 29% recycled aluminum, 18% recycled steel, as well as 16% recycled polymers and bio-based materials. It's also produced in one of our climate-neutral manufacturing plants using 100% renewable electricity. The ES90, just like all of our new electric cars, is really designed with sustainability in mind. The benefits of technological advancement aren't limited to its users. They ripple across both our value chain and society at large. So let me highlight some really cool examples of where technology has served as a catalyst for sustainability. Megacasting is a perfect example of one of these. It allowed us to completely rethink body manufacturing. By replacing 100 smaller parts with 1 large aluminum casted body part, we've been able to reduce manufacturing complexity and improve design flexibility. What you can see here in the image is a piece from the floor that's part of our megacasting project. By casting major parts of the floor structure of the car as one single aluminum part, we can reduce the weight. This improves the energy efficiency and thereby the electric range of the car. It reduces complexity in the supply chain and manufacturing process, which in turn creates cost savings in terms of material use and logistics, reducing the overall environmental footprint across the value chain. And this gives us greater flexibility and better traceability as well, also contributing to a circular way of working to resource efficiently deliver the desired technical outcome. Bidirectional charging is another great example. This creates a future where our electric vehicles can integrate into society, powering homes, supporting the grid through vehicle-to-grid systems, which is also known as V2G, and complementing renewable energy systems. V2G is particularly close to our hearts as this can significantly improve grid efficiency by discharging batteries when the grid is near its capacity limit. So you can see on the left here how uncontrolled charging burdens the energy system. In the middle, you see how smart charging is a bit of an improvement when energy is used at optimal times. And on the right, we have the V2G, which allows electric vehicles to charge when renewable energy is abundant and discharge when it's scarce, helping to balance the energy system. Programs like this help to establish the role of electric vehicles in the broader context of a future energy system, which is reliant on renewable energy sources. We did a study on the potential impact of V2G, and the results are remarkable. It has a great potential to reduce CO2 emissions. By replacing fossil-based energy with renewable energy, a V2G-capable car could, according to our estimations, replace a significant amount of CO2 over its lifetime. In some cases, up to half of the lifetime emissions of the full car. We started piloting V2G in Gothenburg last winter, with cars discharging when the grid is under stress. V2G brings the possibility for electric cars to not only be the single most important climate solution in transportation, but also help the transition to a more sustainable energy system. Now let's talk about insights. Customers themselves can also influence the sustainability impact of their car. For example, our Range Assistant app helps drivers to optimize their cars through smart energy management and advice on driving style from an efficiency perspective. It can also adjust the climate system automatically in order to improve the driving range. It's more efficient and it's better for the climate. Last year, we also launched the world's first EV battery passport. This passport records the origins of certain raw materials, the components, the recycled content, and the carbon footprint of the EX90. We've also extended it now to our upcoming ES90. So if you want to check it out, go and see it for yourselves in our booth. There's a QR code inside the car, and I recommend you go and take a look at it. And then I'd really like to hear what you think. Our focus on sustainability is the right thing to do for our customers and the future competitiveness of our business, as well as for our planet and communities. Global warming is identified as one of the largest global risks, and the road transport industry accounts for around 16% of global emissions. According to the United Nations, electrification and a moving away from the internal combustion engine is the single most impactful action the automotive industry can take to address emissions. But electrification also comes with other benefits beyond being better for the climate. It's critical from a public health perspective as well. It drastically reduces urban air pollution and noise levels. Electric vehicles can produce considerably less noise than gasoline or diesel vehicles, especially at lower speeds. And alarmingly, in 2022, in the EU 27, 48,000 deaths were attributable to exposure to nitrogen dioxide concentrations above the World Health Organization guideline. But in London, the ultra-low emission zone policy scheme, which relies on the increased use of electric vehicles, helped reduce central London roadside nitrogen dioxide concentrations by 54%. We all recognize the challenges the car and the automotive sector faces right now. We face tariffs, other regulatory challenges, and geopolitical turbulence, which shows little signs of abating. However, at Volvo Cars, our gaze remains firmly on an electric and more sustainable future. And our long-term ambition to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040 is unchanged. I also see the opportunity that lies ahead of us. Sales of electric cars exceeded 17 million globally in 2024, reaching a sales share of more than 20%. The European electrified car market has grown by 25% in the first 4 months of 2025, reaching 1.2 million cars sold. Fully electric car sales have grown by 29% year to date. So the uptake of electric cars will create close to 3 million jobs for the supply base in energy production, infrastructure development, as well as material recycling. And as of 2025, there are 3,500 European EV charging companies, which employ 80,000 people. By 2030, those are expected to double. So it's more important than ever that we stay the course on electrification and unlock its economic and competitive edge. This isn't the time to kick the can down the road. So this is the reason we're here today. Now we know where we're coming from, but promises from policymakers are being broken. Policies are being reverted, and the market playing field is being ripped up. To keep moving forward, we need support from the entire ecosystem to fully realize the rewards of this transformation. We have the technologies, investments have been made, and now we need the support. We need the full ecosystem on board. Because when that happens, we unlock meaningful change in the world. Decarbonization is not about degrowth. It's about redefining growth to include long-term sustainability and resilience. It creates opportunities for innovation, investment, and new markets and customer benefits. It creates a future with sustainable growth, green jobs, less noise, less pollution, and better health if we do this right. And if we do it together. We'll get there. The future is in our hands. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa, for this heartwarming plea and the beautiful photos, by the way, that you
Thank
had.
you.
Well, you mentioned, of course, it's giving jobs and it's giving, there's growth. It's a very positive story. On Monday, we had this session on jobs, but you also see a sort of insecurity. It's also insecure times because it's new jobs, but it's also old jobs losing. Mm. So what is sort of the message to the world on that? I mean, how it is a positive message, but there's also people, how do you convince people that change should be there?
I think we need to see the transition, but we also need to recognize the fact that it's not easy to just from one day step to, if I look at our customers, right, from a regular internal combustion engine to an electric, right? We've got to help people make this transition. We need the support, we need the stability, and we need to all work together in it. And frankly, I think we need to really highlight the benefits. But for me, I mean, with our electric cars, it's getting people into the cars and seeing this is a great experience. You want to drive an electric car, as an example.
Yeah. But I understand. And but what I also see at this moment, and I would like to ask you, is there's so many people. There's change. There's people that don't like the change. There's people that are really in favor of the change. So if you would want to invite 5 people to this discussion, like, okay, with those 5 people, I really want to move on. And it's not just only the believers, but who would you invite to that discussion then?
That's good. I think for sure I would have to start with our customers. And here I need to see, I want to talk to the people who love driving an electric vehicle and understand what is it that's so great about it for them, really. And then I want to talk to the people who don't want to or who aren't ready to be there yet and understand what are the challenges, what are the hurdles, what do we get out of the way. Supporting that, I would also say, actually, I would go to Volvo's former well-known CEO, P.G. Gyllenhammar. He famously was quoted to say, as Volvo Cars, we're part of the problem, we need to be part of the solution. So he had that vision, he had radical thinking about how he wanted to change things, and I think it would be interesting to hear how he can help us also think radically about how we can move forward. And then actually I would like to take that group and go sit in the middle of the G7 discussions that are happening in Canada right now and talk to those people and let them hear the opinions of all these different people, because those are the people who can help us really make the change, drive this transition that we need.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should take the lesson of yesterday. There was the Dutch representative from the government. She said we should all put them in an escape room because and we hide the key, and once they're finished with the discussion, they can go out. So maybe we should do that.
Good.
Maybe that's something good to do for the next year.
Okay, we'll bring a key, right?
Yeah, we'll bring a key. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Give her a big round of applause. So we're going to go to the next session, and it's going to be about batteries. The title is, Can Next Generation Batteries Close the Competitiveness Gap in the EV Race? We've got a Mentimeter for that one. You know now the system, so I would like you to answer the question, how do we make it cool to design batteries? Just, whatever you think would be nice to do, good to do. And in the meantime, I'm going to invite the next moderator on stage. Linda, please join me here. While we look at the answers that, It's early in the morning, I realize that, but just, give this gray head of yours like a real boost, and let we see, well, they don't know anything. How do we make it cool? Oh! What we maybe can do is you just start your discussion and your moderation, and then let's keep this in, and maybe it can give great input to your discussion.
And I also think that the session we had Monday morning on jobs creation is related to this one. So
it is, yeah.
So if you missed that, it's recorded. Look at it.
It is recorded, so that is true. So you have to look both of the sessions. Good luck with your sessions, and give her a big round of applause.
Fast lanes and cleaner skies. Batteries bold, the future drives. Power packed and built to last. The race is on and it's changing fast. Can we close the gap? Let's light the spark. Next-gen batteries make their mark. Well, this was not made by me. It was made by EVEGREN and ChatGPT in collaboration. Thank you for having me here. It's actually my hometown, Gothenburg, so I'm very, very pleased to see all of you here in the city. You are the heroes who drive the future to make the cleaner skies. I work normally in Washington, D.C. with an initiative called Green Transition Initiative, and we do that, and we are committed to make a change to create collaboration around innovation and adoption of green technologies, and we primarily focus on cities. Maybe you know why. We have also, during the time we've been up and running, created a pilot on electrified construction equipment. So we made a fully electrified construction project in North Carolina, and I think that's amazing. It's a good start. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the keynote speaker of this session. And he is an expertise in green battery testing and development and how to drive competitiveness through regulation and standardization. Please join me in welcoming Franz EVEGREN, Director of Fire Safe Transport at RISE. Welcome.
Every innovation starts with an idea, but far from all ideas end up as innovations. RISE is Sweden's research institute, a key catalyst for innovation and industrial renewal. We are your partner, your R&D department, your project manager. RISE is the time you don't have, the evidence your customers demand, your solutions for tomorrow. It's market entry and full speed ahead. More prosperity with a smaller footprint. For real.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Does anyone else in here love sailing? Can I see some hands? Oh, you're all so shy. Must be a lot of Europeans. We're all so nice and shy. I love sailing. I spent actually a couple of years of my life sailing around the world as a bosun on a sail training vessel, the best time of my life. But also here in Gothenburg, we have a beautiful archipelago, and I welcome you all to come here and experience it. But today we're going to talk about something else. The EV race. Did you guys know there's an EV race going on? Is it one of those Formula E? No, it's not the Formula E race. I think the person who wrote this title must be European because it's a little too nice. I'll give it to you straight. The man who shall not be named has made it very clear that there's a global trade war going on, and it's time for us in Europe to wake up and realize that. Can? Really? Can? Are we asking for permission to take part in the race, or are we questioning our own ability? I don't know. But I'll tell you something. China and the US, they are not asking for permission. In 2008, China made a plan to dominate the world market in 3 areas. The new 3, or Xinjiang: solar, lithium-ion batteries, and electric vehicles. Solar is already lost. China accounts for more than 80% of the global sales. Lithium-ion batteries, there it's 50%. And in EVs, the global exports are already at 20%. Astonishing. This is the reality, and it's time for us to wake up. If we don't, Europe, we will lose our automotive industry, which is so important for us in our economy. It employs 13 to 14 million people, represents 7% of our GDP, and a third of all the private development and research comes from funding from the automotive sector. And right now, Yeah, we're not doing so well. What else? Competitiveness, right. When Ursula von der Leyen introduced her new College of Commissioners and the new program, her total focus was on competitiveness. And when the Clean Industrial Deal was introduced earlier this year, competitiveness was in the clear center. Why? Because Europe is behind both China and the US in the emerging technologies, which are so important. Our freedom and independence rest on economic strength in these new emerging areas. So the European Parliament, they ordered an in-depth analysis of the future of European electric vehicles to investigate the consequences of different potential scenarios of the European automotive industry. And cutting-edge Europe, this is actually the only scenario where we come up on top, where we have a future. It means that we need to have our own world-leading technology and take a leading place in the global EV market. All the other scenarios mean that we will fall behind and fade out. So for the cutting-edge Europe scenario, what is critical is that we have a homegrown development and production of battery cells. But we have a challenge. Dun Insights have estimated that in their report on auto and battery industry for Europe from this year, that Europe is about 7 to 10 years behind China when it comes to battery technology and supply chain development. So we have a challenge. And furthermore, furthermore, there's an enormous overcapacity in China. An enormous overcapacity. For LFP batteries, it's twice as big as the demand. And it has led to a price dropping to 78 US dollars per kilowatt hour. It's down 20% only from last year. Why? Well, the market hasn't really been fair, has it? Very conservative estimates, I would say, from 2019 show that China has a significant public support. And from 2022, the US subsidies are up here at 150, 175 billion euros. It makes it a bit difficult to compete. Much better. Perfect. Did I say I love sailing? I wish I could be on one of those Volvo Ocean Race boats. That would be a dream. Gosh. So what should we do? Well, firstly, the race isn't over. Rethink Energy projects that the annual demand of batteries is going to increase by 15 times by 2040. So there's plenty of time to get into this critical technology race. But I think significant subsidies are necessary for European cell manufacturing, just for us to get into the same size boat and into the race. And then China might be 7 to 10 years ahead of us. Well, at least they have a 7 to 10 year head start. But they've been exploring the seas, and we can learn from all their experiences. And quite soon, I think we can fall in behind them. But have you seen one of those tremendous sail races? Are you watching sail races, you guys? No? You need to watch more sail racing. If you haven't, it's tremendous action. All the boats are in line, and all of a sudden, one of the boats totally diverges from the others and changes trajectory. And I think we need to realize in Europe that we're never going to catch up with China. They're quite far ahead, following the same trajectory, the same course. We're never going to catch up with them. We need to set a new course. And I believe that that course is sustainability. Or as Ursula von der Leyen said, there's so much untapped potential at the global market when it comes to innovation and clean solutions. And she wants to see Europe, the European automotive industry, taking the lead here. We need to develop batteries which have a much smaller environmental footprint in manufacturing. And we need to develop batteries which have a much greater potential to be used in a second life. And batteries which, to a much larger degree, can be recycled. I think we need to take a step back, and we need to think about how we want the electrification to evolve in our society, and how we want the electrification to look like in future years. And then we need to invest in developing solutions, innovations for that future, and we need to set regulations and standards in line with those targets. Or as illustrated here, with acceptable contribution to global warming in cell manufacturing. Now, where I work, we have made a small contribution to a more sustainable development of EVs and batteries. I'm a manager of this battery safety lab, and it's one of RISE's over 130 test beds. And I used to say that I burn Teslas for a living. I used to get a little bit different reaction. People used to ask if I'm a fire scientist, which I am, but now they ask if I'm an arsonist. Not that I really understood the difference, but anyways, when we built this lab, we wanted to make a stand for sustainability. We decided that we wanted to make a stand, and only the building cost around 50 million euros, and that is without vibration tables, climate chambers, cyclers, and the fun tools, the mechanical abuse tools. So only the building, it cost about 50 million euros to build. 10 of those went to the smoke cleaning system that you see there on the left, with an electrostatic filter and a scrubber. And it cleans atmospheric emissions by 95 to 99%. And this is a 20% investment in sustainability, because we think that this is how thermal runaway and battery fire testing should be conducted in the future. Now, we know that we have competitors who let the smoke out in the air and the extinguishing water into the ground, and there's a lot of testing going on in backyards and in fields. But we think there's enough black marks after greenification, enough black marks after electrification. So, sustainability. In Europe, Norway is a forerunner when it comes to electrification. And something that has reached enormous interest in Norway lately is how batteries can be reduced and better recycled. We need to ensure safe use of second life batteries, and we need to a much larger extent, be able to recycle. That means that we need to put efforts into developing new designs of batteries and new designs of electric motors. And this is where Europe can find a competitive advantage, I think. And we need to set up requirements for sustainability, as underlined in the Draghi report. So in summary, to reach battery independency from China and to dominate the automotive market in Europe, I think we need to have 3 parallel focuses. Firstly, we need to have subsidies, public support for battery production in Europe, so that we can get into the boat. And then, secondly, we need to set new targets through new requirements for sustainability in the whole life cycle of batteries. And thirdly, I think we need to set a new course, a new trajectory. We need to invest in the development of the next generation of sustainable batteries. And we need to realize that Europe's future in batteries is not a cost race. It's a race of innovation, skills, and industrial sovereignty. And as concluded in the letter report, to do this, we need a common area for knowledge sharing, or a fifth freedom to enhance research and innovation. It was also concluded in the HERON report that we need to align our efforts to get ahead. We need to act boldly, no more Mr. Nice and shy European guy. We need to act boldly, and we need to accelerate scaling up of innovations. Or at least this is my take on it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And now I think at least it looks cool to be in the battery value chain. And also I really like that we should take up the fight. We should not be the nice guys only. We should really get into it. And also the new direction on sustainability. So thank you so much. You will be part of the panel as well, so please take a seat. And I will introduce the rest of the panel list. And we have a great panel coming up here. Gerhard Meister, Vice President Electrification at AVL. Ilka von Dalgvik, Director General for Recharge. Viola Lind-Bratvich, Director EU Public Affairs at CATL. Egeman Tomturk, VP Sales and Business Development at Vested Mobility. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. So before we dive into to get to know the panel, I would also like to urge you to post questions in the app, and then in the Q&A, we will pick the most liked questions to be asked to the panel as well. So I would like to start to interview each one of you a bit before we dig into the full panel questions. And I would like to start with you, Ilka. How can Europe leverage its strength in innovation and sustainability to close this gap and become a leader in the green battery production?
Thank you for having me here, and I think we heard a lot of good examples on actually how we can achieve this, be bold. I just want us to take a step back when we really talked about developing this industry in Europe back in 2016, 2017, with the launch of the European Battery Alliance under the leadership of the Commissioner Mauro Šefčovič. I think by then we recognized that batteries really are the backbone of an electrified society, and if we want to be at least have some strategic autonomy and also the ability to develop and innovate when it comes to battery technologies, we need to build this industry here in Europe. And the vision by then was really to establish the industry in a sustainable and in a circular manner. And I think this is what we have been bringing and developing since all those years. I know that the industry is now in Europe under enormous headwinds, but we should also not forget all the progress we made by having this vision from the very start. It's a very new industry for Europe to start building, so it also gives an opportunity to start from scratch and try to build in also political incentives to really develop this industry in a circular and sustainable manner. And I think we are very blessed with having the battery regulation that had been adopted in 2023 to have like as a guidebook on how we actually, it's a playbook for really on how to develop and put batteries on the European market. It contains a lot of details on when it comes to recyclability, really trying to incentivize the industry to think recyclability from the start. It's been a quite ambitious project as well, and now that we are at the phase where we're trying to implement all the secondary legislation, we start to realize it is quite complex, and it also puts a lot of burden on the industry when it comes to reporting. So now we see that there is a lot of scale back in many of the ambitions. It is simplification, reduction of unnecessary burden is certainly something that is welcome from the industry, but we should not really try to lose course, as you say. We really should have our eyes on the goal. We have a good and have built a very strong innovative network and ecosystem in Europe, where we right now are blessed also with a lot of funding by the European Commission. We right now start the discussions on the upcoming multi-annual financial framework, and I really pushing for that the battery industry and battery partnership will have a prominent place going forward. Because as you said, it's in the innovation we really are strong in Europe, and we need to develop new technologies. We had next generation batteries on the title, and I'm quite sure we will talk more about new battery technologies.
Yeah, and you have really been instrumental in building a collaboration among the stakeholders across the value chain. And listening to the first presentation here about also staying the course, what problems do you see in this, going a bit back and forth?
I think that is what we as an industry association always have been pushing for, is really stability. Because stability is good for investment. If there's an uncertainty in the market on where the market is going, it's of course that if you want to invest, it is connected to a higher risk, then you might be holding back a little bit, and that is a little, that is right now the situation we see in the market. I think one of the most critical elements is really now the discussions around the electrification targets that we have around 2035 that is currently attacked from very many angles. Just yesterday on the battery regulation, there is now a proposal to have a so-called stop the clock proposal on the due diligence requirements, the Chapter 7 of the battery regulation, to give the industry, but also the member states, a little bit more breathing time to actually prepare and get ready. And we really had been hoping that this would be passed through the Council and Parliament to enable really the industry to, well, now we can concentrate on that. But then there was a proposal coming from one of the political parties in the European Parliament to actually scrap this entire Chapter 7 related to traceability, due diligence, which opens now for discussion, which means through the delays, and this is never good for the industry to not know, because the industry has been gearing up for that. We heard Volvo just talking about the digital product passport and the importance of traceable supply chains, and now sometimes I think politicians they're trying to help, but it's like a very short-term measure, and we are afraid that this in fact will actually harm the industry and not to stay on course.
And potentially also not then giving the new direction that you pointed out. I mean, this regulation is really related also to be able to take the sustainability position.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, going forward to you, Gerard, you are responsible for portfolio strategy and global business development in electrified propulsion systems. And I wanted to know your view on how European Union can really localize the cell production of battery. How can that be supported here?
Yeah, I guess the key point is this whole topic of volatility. So if we compare other regions of the world, how they develop and how the technology is progressing, and you see these innovations popping up every other day, as it seems. And it's driven by a long-term vision, and everybody knows there's a regulation and a vision behind, and then people follow a long-term plan. And we also have to keep in mind that if you speak now about China in particular, their target to become sustainable is in 2060. We have for the European Union a target in 2050, and we want to switch over the passenger cars at least 15 years prior. And this timeline is brutal. That really makes it difficult, but I guess the key point if you talk about what can the EU do to localize your production is two elements. One is stability in the regulations. Maybe a correction may be needed, an adjustment on the timeline, but then stay the course. And the second element is when you talk about cell production, energy cost is a big factor in being competitive. So if I have the number roughly on my mind, 25% of the cell cost here in Europe is coming from electricity. And if there's a factor of 3 to 4 compared to other countries on this planet where cells are made, that gives you a huge competitive disadvantage that you cannot resolve by yourself. So these are two key elements that need to be managed.
You also have a long global industrial experience, and you spent time in US and Italy. So do you see any, like based on your industry experience, any specific technology advancements that are key?
I guess I would like to connect back to this topic of reduce and recycle, the two pillars. Reduce means do more with less. I'm an engineer, so engineers like to eliminate waste. We like to optimize. If you look at the car next to us, I would argue that this vehicle is much more efficient than the previous generation. And that's a good example of what the automotive industry can contribute in order to reduce the energy consumption of the vehicles. And there's still a lot of innovation ongoing in that area. Second element, fast charging capability. It's a matter of convenience. If charging becomes very similar to refueling, then of course the usability for the consumer is much better and alleviates some of the fears that we find these days in accepting electric vehicles. Plus, if that works, you don't need to carry around a battery all the time that's good enough for 1,000 kilometers of range. So of course it also has an impact then on sustainability. Vehicle structures can get lighter, you can reduce the material use. On the recycling side, we have now a situation where the key barrier to bring consumers into electric vehicles is cost, product cost in the end. So the investment barrier, if we really talk about the mass market, I'm not talking about us here in the room. I'm really talking about the representative cross-section of the total market. And their product cost is the key obstacle. But there's a trade-off now between bringing product costs down and higher levels of integration versus recyclability. So this whole topic of allowing for physical separation again of the different elements in a battery, I really believe there's a trade-off that needs to be managed and where we will find a lot of innovation in coming years.
Thank you. And Viola, you have spent over a decade increasing collaboration between Chinese and German industries. So what would you say is what Europe needs to build in type of strengths to take up this competition?
Thank you for inviting me. Actually, I would say the people is very important. Mostly the people forget about the people, and especially the operators in the factories. Because you can have great innovation, but the end it should be made by the people, of course also the machine. We are running, CATL is running a gigafactory already now in Germany. Since the last years, we are now having more than 1,080 people, 800 people. And we realized that it's really at the beginning, it's really very difficult to keep our knowledge from our aspect to the local people. First of all, you have to find the local people first, of course. And then they should have the qualification to do the job. And get this kind of qualification is not easy at all. Then you have to translate everything, technical and everything, but you really need their college from the same label. For example, our experts from China in the operator label to transfer the knowledge to his college locally. And these periods will last for months because they have to learn first and they make mistakes, they have their backup, and then they can cover everything. So normally, when we're talking about the cooperation, we always forget about the people, the working people. And this is very important. I think this is also very important for Europe. If we want to scale up the production, of course, we will have the automatic machines and so on. But at the end, we need the people for that.
You also advocate for green innovation and for code of conduct. And then along this road, I think the sustainability is not only the environmental perspective, it's also what you talk about the people. So would you like to elaborate? Could that be a position for Europe to take then as well?
Yes, in the part, for sustainability perspective, I think it's also very important to use all kinds of instrumental. For example, to make we heard about from Volvo about the battery passport project, so that you can chase every data and every information, where the materials come, how they produce, and so on. Such kind of points would be also, of course, considered in the European production.
Thank you. Going to another international experienced person, Egmont, you work with you're the vice president for sales and business development at Vestel Mobility. Based on your experience, both from Turkey, China, and Netherlands, what's Europe's best shot of this new competition?
For the competition, I think in the in the presentation we also see that Europe is now coming a bit behind. So we see China leading with let's say Asia Pacific is leading, with US is acting very fast, and then Europe is trying to find its way. In the competition, first we see that because we are not anymore the first movers, so there's a very significant impact of like losing the scale effect. So the scale needs to be created, and after the scale, then the let's say the supply chain benefits and the production cost benefits are going to come. So how to create that? I think in also with the a bit unique position of Vestel Mobility, we look let's say the whole game in a bit different way, not only from electric vehicle point of view, but we also look from a more cross-industry collaboration and coordination. And what I mean is not only the issue of electric vehicle, but it's also about grid resilience, grid stability, and accessibility. So we are not only looking, okay, there's a trend of EV growth, electric vehicle growth in the market, plus there's a significant also the growth in the energy field, because we use more renewable sources today. A grid needs to be more resilient, grid needs to be more accessible and reliable. And this comes with the better energy storage systems. And how we look today is one way that we talk a lot about reuse, recycle, and I will also add it repurpose, where we give a second life to the batteries. And that might also open up a kind of new kind of opportunities for innovation. Where electric vehicle batteries can be used in later on in a better energy storage system, which is also a very growing market. So if based on the projections that we see, like by 2030, and so we need like 200 gigawatt hours of storage systems to make sure that we have, which also access to low-cost energy, which is going to also help the production cost to go down. And almost 30% of it, you can basically have it from the electric vehicle batteries if regulations, standards can also support the use of those batteries also in the energy storage systems later on. So we see a lot of opportunities where we can compete and come back.
You have also responsibility for the US market, and you also volunteer to do startup support in India and Africa, so you are like crossing a lot of regions.
Yep.
Do you see any differences or things that we can learn from based on the differences?
In US, I think one of the US versus, let's say, the Europe, one of the big difference that I see today is investment environment, even in the valuation of the companies. Like while Europe is looking at the EBITDA multiplier, US is more looking at how scalable the market that the company is playing, the revenue expectations and so. And then accessing to the funds and so is making a significant difference. When we are stepping into this area where we need to compete, we need to be faster, we need to find a new route as from the sailing expertise, like there's no straight route. You can never, you always need to do zigzags, let's say. To do that, we need to really support the SMEs. I think here, in the whole recycling, repurpose, reuse case, we are going to see also a lot of SMEs coming with new ideas, innovative ideas, new way of collecting the waste, evaluating let's say, the used batteries to repurpose them, testing them and validating them again, using the production. So there are multiple opportunities when you really divide the whole recycling process into phases, from collection to testing, then disassembling, assembling again. And so in every step, there is going to be a room for significant innovation. And that innovation is going to come from our agile, small and mid-sized companies. And they need to be funded. So I think the biggest difference is like access, let's say, have accessibility to those funds, have a different way of looking when we evaluate companies, and then give them enough room basically to grow.
Thank you. And now you know the panel a bit better. Now I would like to open up the questions to all of you. But starting with, what is the reason why we are behind? What factor is that? And I would like you to maybe reflect on that, Ilka.
Yes, I think one of the reasons is simply we started a lot later than they did in Asia. We didn't have any legacy industry that we could transform into an EV battery production. I think there was a very different situation coming from Japan, South Korea, when you're looking at video and cassette tapes, which are in many, like you do code a lot of things. So there was, in fact, some of the experience that already were there in those regions. And they had this long-term vision that you mentioned. I mean, they had really decided we are going to do this, had this long-term sustained support for electrification, and also supported companies in a very different way than we do in Europe right now. And I think when we started with European Battery Alliance, there was this persistent question that we're always asked. Already 2017, we were 10 years behind. So was it too late to jump on the train? Should we wait for the next generation technology? And then we really can jump in the game, because then we know with all the innovation, we are just ready to magically produce solid-state batteries all of a sudden in Europe. Or shall we really try to learn and master mass production? And I think a lot can be said about the failure of Northvolt and other European giga projects, but this is really what I see as crucial, that we need to master. And as you said, it's about the people. It sits in the hands and brains of peoples. So this mass production process, that is very tedious, it's very costly, but we need to have support for actually learning to do mass production of chemical products like battery cells are. And for this, I think we are advocating right now in the regulatory framework for a different kind of support that is not there in Europe, and that is more an output-based or unit contribution support that is maybe comparable to the US IRA, but focusing really on production. In Europe, we are very good at funding the very early stages, the research and innovation ecosystem. Then we have incentives for customers, but then there is this entire gap of the production in between. And we are now trying really to change this in Europe to be more able to support scale-ups, like the scale-up phase, as you mentioned. And I hope that with this different kind of support, that you actually can, if it's a unit contributor support, it is quite easy to calculate for a company as well what amount of money you will need, how much money you will get in funding, which makes it more bankable. And hopefully this will also free a lot more of the private capital that, as we see in the US ecosystem, available for startups.
Any of you that would like to add to this, maybe how we can frog-lip this gap?
Maybe to connect to what you said, Ilka, this scale-up process, this is probably one of the key obstacles that we see right now, hindering Europe in picking up fast in production. The experience that other companies have made throughout the years in industrializing the cell designs to really get the production stable and to get the scrap rates to a level that the cell makers are competitive. There's a lot of know-how in that. It's not good enough to spend billions into capital investment. You also have to have the capability to do the commissioning and the control of these machines. And if you talk to cell makers that are now in the ramp-up phase here in Europe, they will tell you they've also gone through production hell to make this happen. And this know-how is something that these companies really want to protect and preserve and leverage then for future installations coming up. This is one element. The second one, also the attitude is a bit different. If you look at China, there's so much competition, there's overcapacity in the market that is huge. So how do you stand out? You stand out by innovation, you stand out by creating new KPIs. Again, I'm coming back to this topic of fast charging. Vehicle has come to market a few months ago that can charge with up to 1 megawatt. Now ignore this megawatt for a second, say it charges from 10 to 80 at 400 kilowatts. That's unique in the market right now. And we are benchmarking this vehicle right now to really understand what it can do in real life. But the attitude is, can do, will do. If you talk about the same topic here in Europe, you hear immediately, yeah, but the infrastructure is not there yet, and you know this and that. You have to get ready technologically in the vehicle so that when the infrastructure is ready, and I know it's on a different time scale, but that you can leverage it. And again, this, if you can refuel or recharge your car at 50, 60, 80, maybe even 100 kilometers per minute one day. All problems solved on the consumer side.
That sounds interesting and exciting, but yeah.
Yeah, I also think that battery production, we need to identify that that is really a key competence here. There was a research group, including Stanley Whittingham, the Nobel Prize winner, that they concluded that we really need to see more cost-oriented research between the fundamental research and industrial production. So we need to have more research into that area as well to make it cost-effective. And I think you mentioned some numbers here. We shouldn't be fooled that China would have cheap labor. Labor is really quite a small part. Competence is important, but labor is a small part. The numbers I saw was that material stands for 70% of the cost. Operational costs are about 20%, and 10% is investment in the battery production, the factory. So 20% is labor, energy, and all that. So it's a quite small part. And actually, the latest numbers I saw is that cell manufacturing is $68 per kilowatt hour, I think, in China, and 75 in the US. So I mean, it is possible to make batteries cost effectively also in the Western world.
I would also like to go back to you were talking about 3 Rs,
Right.
and then if we take a new position and compete in that, and then what innovations do we need in recycling? And maybe Viola, if you can start.
By talking about recycling, I think we have to keep it in mind that battery is not a one-time product. most people, even most people in Germany, I live in Germany. Most people in Germany think that the batteries, you use once and then you throw it away and it's done. Yeah. But nowadays, with the EVs and energy storage and so on, the battery is not the one-time product. It's the raw material in the circular economy. The colleague has said very well, because once you have the EV batteries, they can still be repaired, remanufactured, repurposed, and then recycled. And even the recycling technology nowadays, CATL is able to recycle, if we go back to the recycle, to the last stop, end of life, we are able to recycle nickel, cobalt, magnesium by 90.6%. And lithium by 93.8% already. So somehow we have calculated somehow, if we keep it in the loop and take all batteries into consideration, I mean also the ESS and everything together, we will be able to maybe have less of the really raw material by 2042, something like that. We will need less raw material because they will go back to the cycle. So it's really very important to keep this in mind, that with the battery, you have a totally different ecosystem as with benzene and so on. And for that kind of things is, of course, also very resilient for the supply chain, for the value chain here. And it's really, in that part, it's really important and crucial to keep the battery in the circular economy.
Egeman, do you want to add to that?
I think, definitely agree on the material side, how we can reuse those materials, and even the new design of, let's say, the cells, maybe reduce the amount and bringing new materials in and new combinations in. I think there is, there are already studies going on, and then there is a room on that side. On the innovation for the recycling, we will also focus on a bit more modularity on the design of the battery and the, let's say, interoperability, from the one field of application to another, how we can easily shift. Of course, regulation needs to also support that so that the design can follow it. So I will add those points also.
I think we're quite looking forward to the Circular Economy Act that is under preparation by the Commission to really tackle a lot of those issues that you said. Because unfortunately, despite what you are saying, what we're seeing in the market right now, also in this race to more affordable cars, it's a lot what we see. It's designed to cost, not designed to recycling in the market. All the cell to chassis, where actually it's like a glued one component that you have to recycle as such, and there you will lose a lot of the material. And I think this vision what we had, I mean, it's a new industry where we're trying to get away from fossil fuels when we're starting, look, why are we all doing this, and really are able to retrieve the material. We can have a second use, we can have the materials back in a closed loop. That is what we want to achieve. So I think we should not be blended by that. We have been hearing talks from China that they're looking at one-time vehicles, that you like very cheap vehicles, but if then something is not malfunctioning, you discard it, throw it away, in many cases with a lot of other electronic portables. And that is definitely not the way we want to go in Europe, at least.
Jara, do you want to add to this life cycle managed perspective?
Yeah, I guess this whole life cycle management again, in the end we have this long-term target and we have to really look at cradle to grave. Again, connecting to what you said, Ilka, the examples now in the market where the battery, you cannot repair anything. You can remove the battery from the car, yeah, that's true, but you cannot even open the cover. Electronics, all the cells, everything is cast into one piece pretty much with glue that cannot be dissolved. And it's of course not, I guess, in line with the objectives the region has set in terms of creating a circular economy. But that's again why I believe there's a trade-off between this level of integration and this maintenance and repair aspect, and then also recycling in the next step, where we will see a lot of innovations. And to be concrete, right now we have glues, structural glues, they cannot be dissolved. Of course, there's a lot of research now ongoing to use glues that through heat or through other solvents that you use, you can then separate the components again further down the road. And again, I guess on recycling, the regulations really drive the innovation, because unless you meet the requirements, you cannot sell your product. This is number one. And the second one is, of course, in the region where raw materials are hard to come by and expensive. Of course, it's also a matter of differentiation and cost competitiveness to be able to recycle efficiently.
Thank you. And regulations is one part, but what about standards and certifications? How can that contribute?
Well, I think it's a necessity, really. I've been working a lot with the maritime sector as well, and we have some forerunners who are really good at safety and developing new standards. They're setting the standards, but it's not very good for competition to be a forerunner all the time. So we really need to set regulations, new regulations and new standards in place to level the playing field, I think. And and when it comes to safety, all the manufacturers have had, all the vehicle manufacturers have had their own standards. So it's really important to level the playing field, that we have these standards, that we have these regulations. Otherwise, competitiveness is very difficult.
I would like to throw in a question from the app here. Also make you remembering that you can still post questions. I have one here, and that is maybe a bit provocative. It says, should we even try to build a battery, sustainable battery industry in Europe? What do we learn from Northvolt? Is this what we should do? Or, yeah, it's a question.
Well, I obviously definitely think we should. I think it's critical for Europe's automotive industry's future. I think that we need to develop this. Otherwise, I mean, as you saw in those scenarios, otherwise, okay, we might have a future for a few years, but we're going to fade out and we're going to disappear. And it's a very important industry in Europe, so definitely. And what it's all about, I think, to catch up, like I said, we need to set a new trajectory, and we need to decide how should this be done in a sustainable way. But we can't just figure that out from scratch. We need to get into the area. We need to start setting the rules of the game. So. Yeah.
I completely agree. We definitely need to do it, and I think also by looking on how this industry developed in other regions, this was not a smooth road to success. There are very many failures as well. So Northvolt was really a hard blow. It was really the I think an icon or lighthouse for this vision to establish a European battery industry. But there are very many more good projects on their way that still need our support, and hopefully we will have a better outcome. But as I said, I think we need this learning curve, and there are so many good reasons to establish a domestic battery industry in Europe. It's about jobs, it's about innovation, it's about our strategic autonomy. The future is electric, and batteries, right now we are at the EVS. It's of course, we supply a lot of the battery cells to the automotive industry, but they're batteries in essentially everything else. When it comes to grid stabilization, we have the stationary storage, which is actually growing faster than the EV sector right now. They're in healthcare, in portable electronics. You have your iPad or whatever. I'm not making any advertisement. Your tablet there. Yeah. Everything is run by batteries nowadays, and this will even be more going forward. So yes, we do need it. We might not be able to do everything on our own, and for that I think we also need other companies, and for that Europe is very different from the approach that US, for example, currently has. We still welcome foreign investments in Europe. I think cooperation with international partners is essential for us also to learn. You said they have cruised the sea for 10 years. Now we should try to learn as well. What have they seen? What have they discovered? Are there cooperation possibilities with other international partners to go forward?
Yeah, that's a really good segue. Sorry.
Can I also add one?
Yes,
I think
sure.
today, just to that question, not to take action on it, I think it's just like maybe 20, 30 years ago saying that let's not use the energy coming from wind and solar. I will say, if we saying that let's not focus on reuse, repurpose, recycle of the batteries, let's not look in a more cross-industry view. and find new ways to basically use those raw materials is really like saying, let's not use the resource energy from the wind and solar like 20, 30 years ago. Today, like many countries, like 60% of it is coming from renewable sources. So if we don't do it now, I mean, 20, 30 years later, then we are just gonna, I don't know where we are gonna end up. So. That's what I want to say.
I can also say something to that point, because I think it's very important for the people to also to understand it's not about mass, it's about the industry logic itself. CATL made the decision to produce in Europe already back in the year 2018. At that time, no one is discussing about that kind of topics, but we still make the decision to produce in Europe because our customer need us. And we want to also understand our customers. So it's a very simple industrial logic. You have to be near to your customers, deliver to them. And I think to accelerate the European battery mass production, you need such kind of catalyst through the international cooperation, or we can also call it a catfish. You need somebody, for example, our factories in Germany, when you're coming, you will bring your knowledge. You have to give the knowledge also, you have to train your people. Otherwise, they cannot do the work, but the people will not always stay in the company. So you are going to give the knowledge to more people so that they will be able to produce. And you will also open a window to the local, the value chain. Because for CATL, for example, in every region, we were always looking for the local partner, regional partner, and global partner, based on the capacity of the people, of course. So when we are coming, of course, we will cooperate with the local partners. And the local value chain and suppliers, we will have the chance to directly deliver and survive, of course, from through the competition. So it's also, I think we don't have to give such kind of things so many political things. It just follow the normal industrial logic. It's quite easy to understand, actually.
Nicely put, I think.
I just wanted to comment that I don't think that Northvolt would have gone into bankruptcy if we would have sufficient subsidies. And the European Battery Alliance 250 have actually proposed an urgent funding package that will give you funding in ramp up and also in continuous production that will probably come into place, if not this year, next year. So it was very unfortunate that it will be too late for Northvolt, but it will be necessary for the future for sure.
Thank you for adding that. And I have one more question on research and funding. How can research and knowledge is really essential for us to boost this industry. How can that be stimulated in addition to the funding as such? How can the research and development be supported?
Yeah, and that is a tricky question, I think. I think we need to work in different levels, for sure. Direct funding is one thing, but we need to also stimulate development and industrial production. I don't know if it should be developing skills like educations, not only research, but we need to support in a different way, I think, in Europe, like it was mentioned here. It's about the people and building knowledge and building competence. So both research and also building educational programs, I think, is key here.
Yes, and now I'm trying to find the best question here in the tablet. I had one question that was about the critical materials for the batteries. We shouldn't forget about that, is the question. How will we have that supply of the critical materials for the batteries?
I mean, supply of the critical raw materials today, I mean, is you know, like major companies, countries who are leading today, like China and so, they have a significant, or Korea, they have significant access to these raw materials. And we all know that one of the challenges for Europe also, like to compete and come back for that, is also accessing those raw materials. And that's why I also mentioned like how critical it is to recycle it, because then you can reduce your need almost to the original, the new material, 30 to 40%. So this is significant. And then adding more different new components on it, which of course today with the new innovation is going to come, then you can reduce your dependency. I think we are also like in the electrification, both in the, let's say, of mobility and in the energy area, where how we see these energy stories are coming in. Being independent or reducing your dependency to these critical materials are also very crucial.
I think we've been talking a lot about recycle, and I think this is one pain point for Europe. It has been that a lot of the black mass, like from the mechanical treatment process, material actually has left Europe to be processed outside. Then we need to and refine back into battery grade material, and then we have to buy it once again, so to say. So there we are we have been pushing from our industry as well to somehow close those loopholes. And as part of the automotive action plan, there was an announcement that black mass now will be classified as toxic waste, which made it way more difficult to actually export it to non-OECD countries, and even to OECD countries. It will require a lot more paper work to actually be exported, which is a first good step. But then we also need to have capacity to actually treat it and refine it back into battery-grade materials. And for that, I think we still need to support the upstream part, the material processing industry, to a greater extent than we do right now. So we have actually both to close or support the value chain at the end, but also at the very beginning. And then we have Europe is working a lot now with trade international partnerships, so-called CTIPs, also to secure access to raw materials, and I think once we have the refining capacity, some of the trade fields hopefully will also come to Europe and not only going to China, as they are currently very concentrated going to.
Related to, did you want to add as well?
And maybe just to add to that, so we have a situation where you mentioned it before, battery cost is now at about 60 euros per kilowatt hour. In China, in the US, you're also looking at similar levels. So it's very competitive already. Why is that happening? We have on the one hand a situation where the raw material costs have dropped dramatically. A couple of years ago, when the big hype was ongoing, lithium prices skyrocketed. That has come back to normal. Why? There's more and more production capacity being installed. The biggest lithium producer on this planet is actually Australia at this point. Refining capacity is still in progress to see shifts, but there is not such a shortage on those materials anymore, number one. Number two is, as you see technological developments, we talk about sodium-ion batteries. In which cars we will see them in the future, I don't know, time will tell. But certainly it also alleviates the pressure on the supply chain, because the energy storage systems now will be primarily supplied by these batteries. And there you don't have a problem with the raw materials. So again, also as technical evolution takes place, these issues are actually addressed.
So we have not much more time, but I have a question about, related back to something said yesterday about mandating local production in joint venture or alike, but it should be made in Europe. Would you support such a policy? And very short answer, please. Support a policy of mandating local production in the European Union?
Oh, yes.
I think that in the short term, that might be necessary.
Yes.
Tesla have said that they would never have been where they're at without the joint venture together with Panasonic. And it's critical in the short term, but not at the cost of not being able to start a local production in Europe. That's very important.
You want to add?
Yes, I think we have been, I think for Europe to actually be successful in this race, we need to look at it, we have a quite holistic view on what we really need to do and need to change. And if you want to have like 4 pillars on how you can build this in a stable and also holistic manner, you have the innovation pillar. I think that is very important also in the upcoming multi-annual financial framework, really to continue supporting innovation and battery recycling research to stay in course there. Then we have the production support, and that is, I think, not only the European, I think this is what everyone in Europe right now is pressing to this production support in Europe. We really need the scale-up support, but then we also need this bi-European or domestic local content, whatever you want to call it, some incentives for the market to choose and buy European products. And there are very many legislative acts now that actually try to implement this in Europe, which is good news. We just want to have it introduced carefully and in dialogue with the industry to have like this incentivizing effect, but not to have too high targets that are unrealistic and then will kill the industry in the process. And finally, as the fourth pillar, I think we have the security pillar with access to raw material, but also when it comes to international cooperation, a kind of playbook. If we have international partners coming into Europe, there should be a set of rules on how actually to set up a business here. And I think you mentioned a lot on this local content workforce is one of those things that we should be looking a little bit more at. And
thank you.
I think we
make it very short.
Yeah, just a final word. Well, we work with thermal runaway detection, and we run an annual battery safety conference, and there was a lot of discussion on this, and people were asking why we even do it. But something I've learned as a researcher, if something is difficult, it doesn't mean you can't do it or shouldn't do it. If people say you can't do it, I say great, we will try, because that's very important. We need to try even though people say it's impossible. And I think developing batteries which are less dependent on critical materials, electric motors which don't need the permanent magnets, it's going to be very, very difficult. But we need to try to find these sustainable requirements and solutions. Otherwise, we don't have a future for the European industry. So
I think you kind of summarized the panel in a great way. And with your glasses on and the hat, I have that in my mind now. And I also like very much the discussion we have had, and also that it's not only about the batteries, it's an ecosystem. And that is a position that Europe can take, and I'm confident that we will now close the gap. Thank you all. Please join me in giving the panel a warm applause. Thank you so much.